Getting started a little late here today, but that's all right. Late's better than nothing at all. And Matthew and I, Matt, big Thursday night game. Couple of 40-plus-year-old quarterbacks getting into this one. You got Joe Flacco, who has spent now he's in his second week with the Bengals as he does his tour of all the professional football teams in the state of Ohio. And you got a Steelers team that's in first place in the division that looks like they're getting better every time they play.
Yeah, they're getting healthier a little bit. They'd lost they lost Jalen Warren for a couple of games. You look at the IR, you don't really have any big names. Maybe Calvin Austin III would be probably your biggest name. But they are getting better. And I think that's important for them because they need to win the games that they're supposed to win. This is a game that they're supposed to win. They beat the Patriots, they beat the Vikings without their quarterback over there in Dublin, and then they beat the Browns last week. The only game they've lost so far this year is to the Seahawks. So they've handled their business, and this is another one where you have to handle your business because then you're looking down the barrel of a 3-game stretch of the Packers, the Colts, and the Chargers that come after this Bengals game.
Right. And you've got what you would assume is your biggest competition in Baltimore has the week off.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still rumblings as to whether or not Lamar Jackson will be ready when they come out of the break. I mean, he's my understanding is he's going to practice with the team, and then they're going to make a decision as to whether or not they feel he's game ready. So you've got a chance to put some distance between you and the Ravens, which gives you a little bit of wiggle room in that 3-game stretch you're talking about.
Yeah, not only the Ravens, but the Bengals as well. The Bengals are technically in second place. They're 2-4. Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody's expecting them to really make a run or anything like that, just based off Joe Burrow's injury. But like that, the division of football that the Pittsburgh Steelers reside in is, I feel like the AFC North is hands down the worst division in the NFL this year.
Mm-hmm. Which is odd to say because normally that's not the case.
Yeah, and I don't think it's particularly close either. The Steelers are the only team with a winning record. Mm-hmm. The Bengals are 2-4, and then Baltimore and Cleveland are both 1-5.
Right.
Now, you give me the reason for Lamar Jackson being out, and I understand that, and that definitely has attributed to Baltimore's struggles. You can make the argument they can win a couple more games than they have with Lamar. But when Lamar was the quarterback, they were 1-3. Like they've lost the 2 after that. So it's not like they were world beaters before Lamar went out either. Mm-hmm. So this is really a chance to. You talked about building distance, and if they're able to build that distance going into that 3-game stretch,
right?
Not that it's a dream scenario by any means, or not that it's the expectation or what you want, but if you win this game and you're 5-1, you can afford to lose those 3 games in a row. Like if you don't get one, then you're able to come out the other side of it, say we're playing Cincinnati again, time to recalibrate.
Right.
That wouldn't give Steelers fans a lot of hope just because it feels like more of the same from the Steelers team where they get off to these fast starts and then they finish in like the 9-8 range and they backdoor their way into the playoffs and get shelled in the wild card. But, this is their division to lose. By all measures, they seem to have the most complete team in the AFC North this year.
It looks like every time he steps on the field and he's getting more comfortable and the fans are getting comfortable and the team's getting comfortable with him, that Aaron Rodgers is starting to begin to feel comfortable, in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. No, he's played better. He played really well in week 1 against the Jets. Now we obviously know what the Jets ended up being.
Right.
And, post Jets game, the game against the Seahawks and the game against the Patriots, they weren't like his best. But, he played pretty well against the Browns. If I remember correctly, he played fairly well in Dublin.
Yeah.
In that overseas game.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's not being asked to like really go win them a football game like this. Like you're not going to go, hey Aaron, like go win us this football game.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mike Tomlin's going to be very okay letting them run the football with
Mm-hmm.
their running back room, obviously spearheaded by Jalen Warren, who continues to get healthy.
Mm-hmm.
They've started working in Caleb Johnson, the rookie, some as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Kenneth Gainwell is also back there. Not to
Right.
get him. I think this is a game where Mike Tomlin's going to be very okay letting the defense win them this football. The defense and the running game win them this football game.
Well, yeah, and also there's something that in the Steelers' DNA, and it's been that way for years, is they also they have a strong tight end room.
Yes,
and I think that one of the things we've seen is that Aaron has discovered, when in doubt, he's got a tight end who's going to be able to help him out.
Yeah, and they have really good like depth in their tight end room.
Right.
Their backup is Darnell Washington, who's 6'8". Like
I know.
they're discussing like moving him to tackle just for longevity purposes. Which
Right.
if you can stick a guy that size at tackle and it's a fluid transition in the NFL, I know it's probably not an easy position to learn, but like that tells you what kind of a tight end he is. So their 12 personnel is really tough to defend.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got Freiermuth, who's a significantly better receiver than Washington is, but Washington's a really good blocker.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you pair those two guys together, then you've got a really – it's rare to get a tight end that can block that well in the run game. And they have it, and they have a weapon as well. So they're able to do things formationally probably a little better than some of the other teams in the NFL, at least when it comes to 12 personnel.
Right. Well, and they've got the deep threats too. I mean, I'll put it to you this way, and you basically, if you listen to KDKA radio on your Odyssey app, which is in Pittsburgh, it's you can do that. You can listen to the Steeler. The guys talking about the Steelers all day long. The fans and the press normally, they're kind of like, okay, yeah, we're playing well enough to get to the playoffs. We're going to make the playoffs, but we're not going to win. That's not what we're hearing in Pittsburgh these days. What we're hearing in Pittsburgh these days is that, we got Aaron Rodgers isn't Russell Wilson. And there's a feeling of, I'm not going to say, I will say guarded optimism, I guess would be the best way of putting it. They're not necessarily bought into it yet, but they're also feeling a little bit more comfortable that the guy that's got the ball, number 8 in your program, is a guy who, is going to get them a lot further down the road than Russ did.
Yeah. I mean, he's not eclipsing, like 250 passing yards every week.
No.
But you feel like you have a passing offense. You feel like you have a vertical passing offense, which is really the biggest – it seems to be the biggest issue with Russ. Like in watching him from, his last year in Denver to, the year in Pittsburgh, now with the Giants where he got benched, it just lacked a lot of verticality. When he was behind center – your passing offense felt very vanilla. Like it felt like you were very limited and handcuffed. It doesn't feel like there's limited and handcuffed in that. And it also doesn't feel like it's something that they rely on too heavily either. It's more of like a, hey, we've got it if we need it kind of a thing for the Steelers.
Yeah. The other thing that I think that, and I've spoken to a number of people about this, is that, Aaron Rodgers' football IQ and ability to identify, trouble either coming his way or trouble that he can exploit is a hell of a lot better than Russell Wilson's.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is weird to say because, Russell Wilson, his thing in Seattle, like what made him such a good quarterback was his mobility and really It was about his legs, but it was
Mhm.
less about his legs and more about his ability to navigate the pocket and still make a play downfield. And that ability has been gone from Russ for probably I'd say at least 3 years, if not from starting in his time in
A
Denver.
little audio trouble there, bud. Your
Oh,
audio was a little crushed there when you're talking. So if you want to
um,
repeat that, that would be good.
no, I said Russ is like his big difference maker from back in Seattle when he was winning Super Bowls out there was his ability to extend plays with his legs, create and
Mhm.
feel the pocket. Like it yes, he was a good runner of the football, but it was really more his ability to navigate the pocket and still make plays downfield. Like he did it, better than just about anybody. But that's what Aaron has better now. Like Aaron still has a little bit of that pocket mobility and the feel and when to get rid of the football. Something that it
Right.
feels like it's gone from Russ. At least it was last year in Pittsburgh. And that's something that they have back is that trust in that quarterback room.
Well, the other thing is that Russ isn't as big a guy as Aaron. So
Yeah.
there's the ability for Aaron to see a field a lot better and to process things a lot faster than Russ. Does that make anything better than what it is for him? It's basically saying that Russ, you know, is a fine player, but that those legs are going to wear out. And if you're small, which he's not small, but he's not big either. He's kind of an average size quarterback. Aaron's bigger. Aaron's like Roethlisberger. Okay, he's
Mhm.
tall enough. He's big enough to realize, okay, I can see downfield. I can see what's in front of me. I can make that decision, and I'm going to go here because I know I can do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's where he benefits over.
Hello.
The trouble there, buddy. Not hearing you.
Oh, I like it just fully cut out. There was just no audio anymore. This is I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi. Um no, I'm very curious about like what is so intriguing about Russell Wilson. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Just making sure it looked like it was maybe buffering there. I'm really intrigued by the whole Russell Wilson experiment and like in both Pittsburgh and New York this year. I get it a little more in New York, but in Pittsburgh last year they had Justin Fields sitting on the bench. I'm still really perplexed by the decision to move off of Justin Fields after he'd played well to
Mm-hmm.
Russell because it felt like they got much worse as a football team after that move. Not immediately, but down the line, it was like okay, like the honeymoon phase with Russ is over. And now that the honeymoon phase is over, we're getting our butts kicked.
Mm-hmm.
In New York, I get it as a sit and let our young quarterback not have to get forced into the game, which
Mm-hmm.
is fine. But I don't know where this belief in Russell Wilson, and I guess it's just a belief that Russell Wilson will maybe show up to your training camp and be the Russell Wilson that he was in Seattle.
Well, you would think that Russ, when he went to Sean Payton in Denver, right?
Yeah.
That Russ was built kind of like, you know, the kind of quarterbacks that had success in Sean's offense in with the Saints, like Drew Brees, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was much like Drew Brees. Probably a little bit better mobile than Drew Brees, but size-wise, he wasn't much. There wasn't much of a difference.
Yeah.
Now, so you figure, okay, well, maybe maybe he gets to Sean and things go really well because he would fit that offense, but for some reason it didn't work, and Sean went to decided he was going to bench him, and then it got to the point where people were like, well, maybe it's just Sean and not
Yeah.
Russ, and so Pittsburgh decided, okay, well, they got both those quarterbacks, with Fields and Russ for basically $3 million. So it's not like they made a major investment in quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So
What was it like $3 million and a 6th round pick? Was that
yeah, what it was is both Justin Fields and Russ had money left on them from their previous teams, from Cleveland and Denver. So basically, Cleveland and Denver were paying him to play. They're paying their former players to play for the Steelers.
Not to jump it, but I believe Justin was acquired in a trade with Chicago for Pittsburgh last season.
Yeah. Did I say Cleveland? I'm sorry, I didn't mean Cleveland. Yeah, he was, but there was money.
Rookie deal.
Yeah, he was still on his rookie deal, so he still had money on the bank. In other words, the Steelers didn't go out and spend $50 million on a quarterback. They got 2 quarterbacks for less than 5.
Yeah.
So I understand that. Okay, one of these guys is going to work is the theory of the case. Neither of the guys worked. Or maybe one of them would have worked if you'd let him stay long enough. But they gave up on Justin real quick. They bought into Russ. Russ didn't do a bad job, but it became fool's gold at the end.
Yeah.
So my situation with the Steelers is they haven't been playing Steeler-like defense, and normally, and maybe that they've had guys hurt, understood, but I think last week was the first week that J.J. Watt played, played a representative game.
Yeah, TJ's had a slower start to the season.
TJ, I'm sorry, yeah, JJ's in the booth. Yeah.
He's actually called I think he's called. I know he's
called 2 of their games already.
Yeah, I was about to say I know he's called at least 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've given him a good draw on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's taken him a little while to show up, and part of the reason that I really question what the Steelers were doing in the offseason was because it felt like they got a lot older on their roster, which isn't always necessarily a bad thing, but it was how much older they were getting, the age of quarterback, and bringing in Jalen Ramsey and sending away Minkah Fitzpatrick, moves like that were a little bit confusing for me, but really they were just kind of the expectation was that their front 4 or their front 7 between their line and linebackers was going to be plenty good enough. And Jalen Ramsey was a little more of a ball hawk. Thought he was going to get some turnovers for him. Everything hasn't really gelled to this point, but if there's something that you believe in Pittsburgh, especially under Mike Tomlin, it's that the defense is going to figure it out. In fact, generally it works in the opposite. Is the offense tends to get a little worse throughout the season, and the defense tends to get better. Which is an odd, maybe your argument can be, well, the other defensives have got better too, and they've caught up to the offenses, and that's the reason why. And maybe that's true, but you have a belief in Mike Tomlin and that staff when it comes to the defensive side of the football, that even if they haven't performed the way you would expect them to, that they will start rounding into form, especially as you head into the middle and later parts of the season.
Yeah. Well, before we talk about the Bengals here in a second, you brought him up. I have no idea why you would get rid of Minkah Fitzpatrick, because he played sideline to sideline. He flew all over the field. I thought he was, I thought he was as good a player as you would ever want to have on your football team.
Yeah, and now the poor guy's gone and disappeared into the black hole that is the Miami Dolphins right now.
Right, he's on the Dolphins, and they have milk. He's on milk cartons in Miami. Where has Minkah Fitzpatrick gone?
Yeah. Maybe they wanted their tight end room to get a little bit deeper. They really felt like they needed Jonnu Smith, and that was what got over the edge to get Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. I don't know. It was a trade that confused the heck out of me when they made it. Looking back on it, and I know that Minkah probably hasn't played well enough to make any notable headlines in Miami, but honestly, who could in Miami?
Yeah.
So it's still a confusing deal, but obviously it was one they felt good about. And Jonnu Smith has performed, and
he's done well. I just, of all the people you're going to deal, on the defensive side, I was just surprised that Minkah Fitzpatrick was the one that they did.
Yeah,
because he was up and down. He was a Tomlin guy, And, it was just curious. That's all. I mean, that's the way it is. But as we said, Joe Flacco left Cleveland, took the trip down the interstate, went to Cincinnati, and didn't show up badly for his first, opportunity last week with the Bengals. Did pretty well. I'm curious as to, Jamar Chase. He and Jamar Chase quickly got on the same page, but I don't know that that's going to work for them tonight against Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Really quickly, I just looked up Minka Fitzpatrick's stats, and based on what I'm looking at, he's doing fine for himself in Miami, even though that the rest of that defense isn't. The strategy that Joe Flacco seemed to develop in the second half of that game against the Packers last weekend was really just like, that, hey, the offense isn't working. Let's toss it up to the 2 all-pro guys we have on the outside, and see if they can make something happen. And Jamar Chase did. Like the touchdown that Jamar Chase caught, that's not a ball that, most receivers are going to catch. To be honest with you, it wasn't a very good ball.
Right.
But it was one that he caught. And, if that's got to be your offense, then there's just a certain aspect of like you're Zach Taylor right now. You're fighting for your job. Like this is for your job. The odds aren't in your favor, so you might as well start pulling stuff out. And what he pulled out in the second half was just a bunch of shots to his 2 best targets. And I would not be surprised if they started out with something similar. And, if I were guessing, I would say they're probably going to start short and try to feed Jamar Chase, in some screens, slants, hook, curls, like that.
They probably put a whole package of gadget plays in just for him.
Yeah, and then if I were to guess, is once they get the feeling that they're kind of sitting on that stuff, then they'll start to take their shots, which may have been what they did last week. But last week maybe they have a chance if they start taking their shots a little earlier. So if you feel like it's not working, start taking your shots a little earlier, because that may be the best hope that your offense has in Cincinnati.
Well, Joe's still got the arm. He can still throw it.
Yeah.
And, you wonder, here's a guy with $80 million in the bank, and he's still coming out to play football on Sunday afternoons.
Yeah.
And they asked him about it, and he just said, I love doing it. Well, it's okay. Good on you, Joe. But I think that this people in Cincinnati are probably a little bit more surprised, and pleasantly so, that Flacco is a calming presence on a team that really, for a couple of weeks there looked pretty crazy.
Yeah. What's it called? And I can tell you, speaking of press conferences, Mike Tomlin wasn't too happy with the Cleveland Browns in his press conference this week.
No.
Oh man. That was funny. It's a fair point. I think it's a fair point that Tomlin has. You thought he was good enough to be a starter, so you traded him to one of your division rivals,
right?
To make them better. Like, I get that you're not doing well, but they ain't doing well either. Why would you try to help them out? So I think it's
fair. The great thing about Tomlin is, if you have a question, and he's going to answer it. And it may not be the answer you want, but it's going to be an answer. And if he has something to say, he'll say it. And he wasn't real pleased that Cleveland made the deal with Cincinnati. And honestly, it's just, I guess the best way to put it is, it's just a Cleveland deal.
Yeah.
Who would ever expect Cleveland to not make a deal like that?
Yeah. And what I'll also say is, I think Mike Tomlin has every right to be upset, because if I'm Mike Tomlin sitting over there, I've seen what Joe Flacco's done, not only this year, but the past couple. And so that he has that like 275 yards, 75% completion percentage, 3 touchdown day sitting in his back pocket, just waiting for the right team to hit him with.
Right.
So he doesn't want to be the team that's on the receiving end of that day.
He spent 10 years with Flacco in Baltimore.
Yeah, this is the last guy that he wants to see.
Yeah.
But, yet again, he's going to try it out there, and and quarterback the other team for now a third division rival of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, they've run out of people to send him to other than Pittsburgh at this point.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, if I'm Pittsburgh, Aaron's going to retire after this year. Just give Joe a call.
Just call him, and if nothing else, you got him on the bench.
Yeah, just let him go
Get him off the field.
Yeah.
Well, let's move over to baseball last night. Suddenly, somebody got hold of the Toronto boys and said, you know what? Maybe we should start hitting the ball. And boy, they just teed off last night.
Yeah, Jim. I'm going to be honest. The way things have been going, I think we just need to stop predicting baseball. Every time we pick something,
it goes sideways on us.
But in terms of the game itself,
but I enjoyed the game personally.
Yeah, in terms of the game itself, I cannot overstate enough. 13 runs in that ballpark is an incredibly impressive number.
Yeah.
Like that is a ballpark that I think in terms of like hitter-friendly metrics ranks in the bottom 3 of all parks in the major leagues. There's a reason that Seattle can't pay hitters to come there. There's a reason that, the two guys that come to mind when you think of Seattle and you think of their hitters, one's Ichiro because he didn't hit it out of the ballpark. He didn't have to hit it out of the ballpark.
He was an average hitter.
And the other's
average.
Yeah, and the other's one of the greatest players to ever touch a bat, King Griffey. So, it didn't matter what park you stuck him in. But
Jay Bruner had a pretty
don't want to discredit Jay, but I'm just thinking of like if you ask somebody on the street who plays for the Seattle Mariners, it feels like Jay Bruner's a different level of paying attention.
You'd have to be a Seattle fan to remember Jay Bruner.
Yeah. No, but 13 runs is really impressive. Are you going to be able to score 13 runs every night? Probably not.
Mm-mm.
So your pitching does have to show up. And I think to a credit, 4 runs isn't a bad outing. But you also remember that this is not a hitter-friendly ballpark. So 4 runs isn't a bad outing, but it definitely could have been better given the place that you're playing. And it's going to have to be. Like for as much as they've won and they probably built a little momentum out of it, it's still a hill to climb. Like you look at the pitching matchup tonight, Max Scherzer's going against Luis Castillo. That's a pitching matchup that favors Seattle. And if I was going to bet, if Toronto wins this series, every time that you open up the game summary or the game, the preview or whatever, you see that pitching matchup, you go, oh boy, Toronto's going to have to overcome that. They're going to have to do it every single time if they're going to win this series. But they showed you last night that they can. Can they do it consistently? I don't know.
Well, I mean, they banged them around the ball in New York when they played against, the Yankees. And, it's there. If you're a fan, you're hoping that they can be streaky, but you're right. It's not a hitter-friendly ballpark. But they got guys who can just, break. You don't have to hit home runs. They scored a lot of runs without home runs last night. But, the home runs were the ones that were, the headline grabbers. But that lineup from top to bottom can hit any, you can throw any pitcher out there. They know. I don't think anybody wants to face that lineup on a consistent basis. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, looking at the at the box score here, Toronto scored a run on every single pitcher that threw the ball yesterday for Seattle. George Kirby gave up
out there.
Vargas gave up 2. Ferguson gave up 2. Luke Jackson gave up 1. But in all that, you also read those names, and I can assuredly tell you, aside from George Kirby, who they obviously a very valuable arm for them, their number 2 starter. All 3 of those relievers are not top of the line guys for Seattle.
No,
they're not your high leverage guys. So they still have those guys waiting. So that again, it feels like a bit of a throwaway game from Seattle. Like they saw what George Kirby was doing. They just kind of dusted their hands off, in peace with it, and said, "Hey, let's move on. Let's go get game 4."
I think we're at that point where Max comes on the mound tonight, and he's such an incredible competitor and such a a guy who just wants to win. At the end of the day, for Max, does he have one more good outing in him? And we'll see. I mean, we'll see how that plays out tonight. We'll see how. Can he give him 5 innings? Can he give him 6 innings? Can he give him 3 innings? I mean, what is it? How far can Max take Toronto tonight? Because it's going to be on his right arm as to how far they go.
And it kind of feels like a clashing of, at least in my head, it feels like a clashing of ideologies when it comes to Max Scherzer. Because you watch Max Scherzer throughout this season and you go, well, his velocity's down, his location's not very good. And then you also see the times where you're like, okay, well, his location, when his location's good, he can still be pretty good. The velocity down still matters. But then I also think about it tonight, and I know that in terms of like a mentality state, there's almost no one mentally that you want other than Max Scherzer on the mound in a playoff game. What's going to win out? Is it going to be that velocity and control? Is he going to show the significant drop-off that he's had in those 2 categories?
Yeah.
Or are you getting, the psychopath that's standing on the mound and is just ready to hurl the baseball at you, and it's enough of a presence that you feel it? Because when Max Scherzer was at his best, especially pitching in the playoffs, you felt Max Scherzer on that mound.
Right. You didn't want to see him on that mound.
No. It was an intimidating presence on the mound.
And he's just, he's not. It's kind of funny with him. You look at Max and it's like it's Max Scherzer, baseball player. You can say he's a pitcher, but he really does an amazing. He just has such that competitiveness. I remember watching him standing next to Davey Johnson and just on the first step of the dugout for the most of the game. You don't see pitchers standing next to the manager, on games they're not playing, and standing there just watching and wanting to do everything from pinch run to pinch hit, which he did a couple of times.
Yeah.
So he was somebody who enjoys the game, and I know we always use the cliche for the love of the game. Max Scherzer is a guy who loves to play baseball.
Yeah,
and that's great. You hope, if you're a fan of Max, and I love Max, he's a great guy. You hope that he's got some stuff left in the tank, because you don't want to see guys like that get go out there and get shelled.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, there's a story out there in terms of like him being a baseball player. I think it was the last season that the universal DH, like they were going into the universal DH. So last season that the pitchers are hitting in the NL. And it was the year that Scherzer had gotten traded from the Nationals to the Dodgers. And he hadn't got a hit all year. And I mean, if I remember correctly, the story is like he laced one and had like the hit robbed from him.
Right.
He was so upset about that. But then not too long after, Clayton Kershaw hit like a dribbler, just like through a hole. And he said, and I think the audio from the dugout's like, "Are you effing kidding me? That gets through, but I lace mine and it gets robbed. This is BS."
Right.
Yeah, that was a rough remembrance and translation of what I think he was saying.
He begged Davey Johnson to put him. They needed a pinch runner, and if they went, they basically had used everybody in the entire roster. They had one guy left, and they didn't want to necessarily use the one less guy to be a pinch runner. So Max had been badgering Davey all the time, and Davey gave him the chance to go in as a pinch runner, and he was at second base, and there was a ball that got, the pitcher spiked the ball,
Yeah.
And Max ends up at third base. And, everybody on the bench is like cringing, going, what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And so he scores on a fly ball. And it turns out to be it wasn't a walk-off, but it turns out that was the winning run. So after the game, they're talking to him, and he said, when the guy released the ball, I knew it was going to be, I've seen that pitch before because I've thrown that pitch before. He said, I knew that wasn't going to make it, so he just bolted.
Mm-hmm.
So he was going to attempt to steal that base, even if the ball had not been spiked. He thought the guy, because look, I've seen that guy pitch. I knew that was the moment it left his hand, it was not going to make it to the catcher.
Yeah.
So that was his one attempt, allowance to play pinch runner. But he's a guy who is a competitor, and that's what you want on your team, is a competitor. And so now tonight, we also get the Dodgers and the Brew Crew going to Chavez Ravine, and that ought to be a fun game too.
Yes, it should. I was seeing, I think Aaron Ashby is currently the Brewers listed starter.
Is Rasmussen pitching?
I don't think so. So on one of the pages, I'm scrolling through the ESPN app right now,
Mm-hmm.
and on like their ESPN bet tab, it's got Aaron
Mm-hmm.
Ashby listed as the starter, and then you click on the game and look at the preview, and it's got undecided listed under the Brewers.
Hmm.
So I don't know who the Brewers are going with. If I were guessing, I would say it probably is Aaron Ashby. Obviously, a bullpen game. And I was looking through. Aaron Ashby's pitched in all but I think one of their postseason games so far.
Hmm.
And he's been pretty good outside of he gave up 3 runs in about 2 innings to the Cubs in game 2, I think it was. It was a game they won. So he's been solid. But when you're going up against Tyler Glass now in LA, you need a little more than what he gave you last time he was your opener, if he is your opener.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, we talked about it. We said we thought these series were going to wrap up. Obviously, the Blue Jays came out. They played very well last night. Not necessarily killing the prediction, but definitely giving a little pause to the thought.
Yeah, putting a harpoon inside of it anyway. Yeah.
I have a really hard time figuring out how the Brewers are going to win this baseball game if they don't score 10 runs. Like
Tyler Glasnow can give you 8 innings.
He can, and that's what I'm saying. Like they're going to have to score a significant amount of runs, I think, in order to be able to win this game where their bullpen is pitching. Because I think their bullpen's solid, but I don't know how great the depth in the Milwaukee bullpen is. And maybe they have great depth. Maybe I haven't been paying attention. Bullpens are. It feels like they're. So if it's not a big name on the back end, and
right.
You don't need a big name on the back end to make your bullpen good. That's also very important. But in terms of like guys that I can name off the top of my head, obviously you got McGill, who can pump it up there to 100. But I don't know a lot about their bullpen, and when you're going against Glass now, you have to be able to hand these guys off. Hand these runs of 3, because now they're in runs of 3. You can't just switch them and play matchups and stuff like that.
Right.
So you have to have a almost flawless game from your bullpen.
I'm looking real quick at the weather in Los Angeles. Right now it's 65 degrees. It's going to get up to a high around 75 to 78. The air quality is poor. The wind is 3 miles an hour. Air quality poor. I could have told you that without looking. Dodger Stadium plays better home run wise in the daytime than it does at night. So, but that being said, this time of year you get that marine layer starts to roll in earlier. So since they're playing these games, in the early evening in Los Angeles, your best chance to get your home runs are going to come early in that game, because that stadium can play a hell of a lot different for hitters when the later it gets in the evening. And if you're going to get your home runs, which it's during the daytime, it's a pretty fair park from a standpoint. You can get your home runs in the daytime, but it becomes much more difficult to do when you're looking at it in the at night. And so we'll see how that works out too.
Yeah.
From that standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, like that's I will say I don't think the Brewers they hit home runs. They're not reliant on their power.
Right. That's not their MO. Yeah.
Yeah. So just because, maybe your home run conditions are dampened doesn't necessarily mean that the Brewers offense will be.
No.
It's more likely that the Dodgers pitching is just that good.
Yeah, I think because you've got that low fence at both on the both the left. There's in left field. There's that little teeny kind of I don't know. It's a 4-foot fence, maybe a little bit bigger, smaller. I think in that, and then you've got it in the right field as well, small areas. You can get some. You can get some. My point is, you can get some cheap home runs.
Yeah,
but you have to pull it to get it.
I think they're about waist high, and they're
Yeah.
both in both those corners. It's
Yeah.
the same height fence. So
Yeah. So it's definitely if you can pull it, you can steal one in that regard. It's also a pain in the neck if you are a fast base runner and it bounces in the stands. You end up with it. You end up with a ground rule double when you could have had a triple.
Yeah.
So it works out that way too. But I think if Milwaukee's going to have to play small ball, which has been their MO for the season. They've got a good defense. They're going to have to continue to play that. But like you, I mean, the Dodgers are just the Dodgers. I mean, that lineup is just bulletproof.
Mm-hmm. And they've been there. Like not only have they been there, but they've been there together.
Right.
So it's how relieving it's got to be on a lineup. And I say relieving because like obviously you're still going out there and it doesn't necessarily like fully change your mindset. But when you go out there for the last 2 games and your starters have given up a combined 1 run over 17 innings, it takes all the pressure away. Like any pressure that the Dodgers hitters were feeling, an experienced veteran group of really good hitters, any pressure they're feeling just gets alleviated. Like, I really would have been nice if we'd scored there, but going 3 up, 3 down's fine because we know that they're going to turn around and do the exact same thing on their side.
But here's my thing too, all right? And we're both baseball fans. You look out there, you see Freddie Freeman, you see Mookie Betts, you see Kiki Hernandez, you see, you just roll down the list, right? Yeah. And you're sitting there just going, these are guys, there's nothing that's going to intimidate them because there's nothing they haven't done.
Yeah, and they've seen it in the regular season too, because like the only thing you could think that like maybe would catch the Dodgers hitter off guard is like when Mizorowski goes, and he's pumping 100 pretty consistently in there.
Right.
But they saw that in the regular season. Like Shohei went against that, Freddie went against that. They won matchups against Mizorowski and his velocity in the regular season. Now they obviously lost their fair share as well, but it's stuff that they've seen. But what I will say is like Freddie Freeman talked about it in the regular season. I remember hearing a quote from him. He's like, you can't game plan for 100. Like you can't, there's no prep, there's no game plan. 100 is 100. You got to be ready to catch up to it. Now, obviously that's not what's coming out of them tonight, but they're just such a well-prepared, deep veteran lineup that when they get to this place, like they found this place, when they win game 1, you feel like you've lost more than game 1 because of who you're going against, which it sucks. Like it sucks to have to say that, but like the Brewers felt like they were out of this series when they lost game one.
Mm-hmm.
For all intents and purposes, because you had Yamamoto going game two. Like you knew their pitching could match up, and when they won game one,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, well, who do you trust more in game two? It was Yamamoto, and it was right. And that's going to be now their pitching matchups again. Like you turn it back over. We talked about it in Milwaukee and Seattle, where we talked about it in Seattle and Toronto, where Toronto feels like they're looking up this massive mountain because every pitching matchup they're not going to be favored in.
Right.
Same goes for the Brewers. Like if they're going to turn this around, they're not going to have a favorable pitching matchup because the only favorable pitching matchups they would have gotten would have been, their 1 and 2 guys being a little bit better than the Dodgers 1 and 2 guys. And what they showed, you're not going to get much better than the Dodgers 1 and 2 guys.
Well, and the funny thing is, and we talked about it, that we thought, okay, well, if they can get, 5-6 innings out of Blake Snell, that'll be great.
Mm-hmm.
They got 7 innings out of, or 8 innings out of Blake Snell, and then they get 9 innings out of Yamamoto, and there are people in baseball who will tell you that Tyler Glasnow's possibly their best pitcher.
Yeah, when he's healthy, he absolutely has the argument to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like what he can do velo-wise, paired up with what his breaking stuff looks like, absolutely he could be considered the best pitcher on the roster. How much is he going to give them? Mm-hmm. I don't think he's in a spot where he's going to give you that. Like I don't think health-wise he's really in a spot where he's going to give you 8. Mm-hmm. I just don't think that's where he's at. But I don't think they need it. Like the Dodgers bullpen is their weakness, but also you look at the names on the back end, you're like, okay, it's their weakness, but they got plenty of name brand guys back here that if they find it, we're in trouble.
Right.
And, who's to say that they won't find it? That just feels like everything's when you roll the dice, the Dodgers are getting exactly what they want every time.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like it's just such talent-wise, it feels like you're facing a rather insurmountable gap for Milwaukee right now.
Well, and the other part of it, and we can wrap it up with this, is that you look at that Dodger lineup, and that's impressive. But you also look at Dave Roberts as their manager,
mm-hmm.
and he's got the incredible, ability to know, okay, we talk about players who've been there, and done that. You're now talking about a manager and a coaching staff that's been there and done that.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain to people how important it is that you have this veteran roster, you have this pitching staff, you have this coaching staff, all of whom have been there, done that. Nothing you're going to throw at them is going to be something they haven't seen before. And nothing that you're going to throw at them is going to intimidate them.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing with the Dodgers is that we talked about it with the Mets. Like money can't buy you a clubhouse, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
They've spent the money, and what Dave Roberts and his staff have done better than anything is, and obviously it's on the players themselves too. Like the manager can't just be like, all right, we're going to make a great clubhouse now. Like it's not something you can snap your fingers and be and do. It's not something that you can really like set forth a plan and just cultivate. Like you can cultivate a good locker room, but it's not something that's guaranteed by any measure. But they've spent the money, and now they've paired it with a fantastic locker room. And that's the problem. Like that's where it's one thing if they spend all the money in the world. If they spend all the money in the world and you feel like you're just going up against a bunch of hired guns, then you feel fine. Like you have a chance. But now all those hired guns feel like they're on a team together, and that's where your problem comes with the Dodgers.
The one last thing that, and this is being someone who's been in Atlanta and knows this, when Freddie Freeman ended up with the Dodgers, he felt betrayed by the Braves. He thought, he wanted to be a Brave. He wanted to be like Chipper. He wanted to, be a Brave and retire a Brave, and that was what, that was his plan. And he kind of had a year where the first year with the Dodgers, right? I mean, you're as good as Freddie Freeman. I'm not saying you're sulking, but you're just you're not, your head is not in it, Los Angeles. It's on kind of looking at Atlanta about what the hell happened. How come I'm not there?
Reminisced for 100.
Right. So but then, I mean, he is from California and actually from not that far from Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So, his family started getting to go to the games. His father hadn't really gotten to see as many games as, as he had, would have. And all of a sudden, Freddie Freeman is becoming your clubhouse guy, which is what he was in Atlanta. And then you get him with Kiki Hernandez, with Teoscar Hernandez, with Mookie Betts. And all of a sudden, this is a tight group.
Yeah.
And they are all pulling in the right direction. Then, of course, there's that tragic situation of last year where, Freddie's, child had issues, and he left the team, and the team supported him from a standpoint of, they wanted him to go. Nobody was, arguing about, what are we going to do?
Hey, Freddie, you're leaving us in a playoff chase. How dare you?
Right. Everybody was, stopping by the hospital on a consistent basis to make sure that his kid's doing fine and the family's doing fine. And when it came, and the front office never once said anything other than what can we do to make it better for you?
Yeah.
And they came out on the other end of that. And, the good story about his child being much better and actually even being able to go to the World Series, which is phenomenal. And they even set up a locker next to Freddie's so that his son could come in the locker room and suit up with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And they had, the players in there. It's a family. It's become a family. I mean, we're talking about wives and mothers and fathers who hang with each other.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you look at that Dodgers organization, it's a family, and they care about each other. And it was Andrew Friedman. You remember Teoscar Hernandez was a free agent this year. It was Andrew Friedman who went to Andrew Friedman obviously went to Freddie Freeman, Friedman to Friedman, and said, Freddie, Teoscar is a guy we want to play. Do you think he wants to come back? Should we spend the money to bring him? And he said, without hesitation, absolutely. This is the guy we want him on. We want him to be with us. Because we know, when the money's on the table, he's as good a clutch hitter as there is in baseball. Yeah. And so again, Teoscar Hernandez turned down more money from 3 other teams to stay with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
So that's you're wondering, can money buy you a team? The answer to that question, as we've said before, is no. But what money can do, if you invest it right and you have an organization that is run properly, it can buy you the right people to win. And I think that's where the Dodgers investment versus other teams' investment. They're investing not just in players, but in personalities and in character players.
Yeah, they've found the right group and focused on keeping the right group together. Like, that's when you find the right group, you keep them together as long as you can. Like, it feels like a no-brainer. You think about what Atlanta did when they realized what they had with Austin Riley and Ronald Acuna. And obviously, Freddie ended up walking, but they had a period of time where Freddie was there with them as well. Like, they locked all those guys up long term. And the the same philosophy isn't necessarily applicable in LA because all of these guys are on the backside of 30.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of them more than others. So they'll eventually start to decline here. You would assume in a couple years. Like it's not something that I'm predicting to happen next year or anything like that. But you would assume that these guys, performance wise, you know, the numbers will start to tick down. But it doesn't matter when you have the level of buy-in that they have in that clubhouse.
No. And if you look to the Dodgers have always had a well-run minor league organization.
Yes. I mean, it feels like every year they pump out like a top
Yeah.
10 prospect that you've never heard of.
And so it's not like, you know, they are able to take these players that came, you know, that come up through the Dodger farm system and plug them in and they, you know, they begin to become contributors to the team. They understand and appreciate what's going on in the. They're welcomed by the veterans. They learn from the veterans, and it's just, you know, that's one of the reasons why the Braves had that situation where division and went to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And Caston's reign as the head of, you know, Stan was the president and John was the general manager and head of baseball operations. If you look at Los Angeles, they've won. They're now in their they've won 15 out of 16, and the guy who's in charge is Stan Caston.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there is synchronicity there between versus who run organizations in sports.
Yeah, when you find that model of consistency, you want to be able to keep it together.
And they've been able to do it.
Yeah.
Well, we've had a lot of fun here. I hope everybody's enjoyed. Tonight, NFL football and Major League Baseball, there's a doubleheader for you. So there's good opportunities to enjoy some both baseball and football tonight. Tomorrow, we're going to get ready for what's going to happen on the weekend. And a few miles from where you are, my friend, College game day will pop in, and the game of the, you know, I would say certainly one of the games of the weekend, Georgia and Ole Miss should be something we have a lot of fun talking about tomorrow. I have a piece that came out, which I think it comes out tomorrow on the history of the rivalry of USC and Notre Dame. So that'll be the nightcap game tomorrow night.
Mm-hmm.
And a look at what happened when Deshaun Foster got bounced from UCLA and they went from suddenly losing to suddenly winning.
Fascinating.
You know, and Tim Skipper, who's the interim head coach.
You know, everybody seems to forget that he is actually the head coach right now.
Yeah, well, he is.
Jerry Neuheisel is getting all the PR credit and everything like that.
Yeah, the prodigal son. Yeah. The prodigal son has been extremely helpful.
Yes,
but the guy who runs the show is Tim Skipper.
Yep.
And I think together, they've got a football team that believes. Now, Harper, no expectation that the UCLA Bruins are going to win the Big Ten conference this year, but or for that matter that they can make it to bowl eligibility. But there is hope there, and I think that's something we can have some fun with tomorrow. They play, they meaning UCLA, plays a Maryland team that's and they've last two games, They haven't looked good in either of them. And they have to go out to Pasadena to play UCLA, and there's no reason to believe that isn't a winnable game for UCLA.
Yeah, I mean the way they're playing now, it absolutely is.
They got a couple of tough wins. Next week they go to Indiana, and then they'll come home and play, and then they go back out on the road to Ohio State. So they have two more pretty rough ones to play. But
yeah,
if they could end up this season win 5 or 6 games after how they started, if the athletic director out there doesn't sign Tim Skipper to a contract, then he's a fool.
Yeah, if they find a way to make bowl eligibility after how they started the season, bring everybody back. Like,
yeah,
retain the whole staff. Obviously, that wasn't the issue. If you're able to turn it around like that, so
right. Well, the way I looked at their schedule, and if I'm not wrong, which I have been, they would have, I think, to get bowl eligibility. They certainly could win any one of the games they have left that isn't against an Indiana or an Ohio State, but that only gets them to 5.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have to knock off an Indiana or an Ohio State to get to 6. That's why I'm saying if you can get to 5, given the way they started, that would prove to me, you know what, we've got something to build with here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would be a fun situation, and I'm rooting for Tim Skipper. I think that he was incredibly overlooked. I know that that Neuheisel's getting the pub, but to his credit, to the young Neuheisel's credit, the first words out of his mouth are thank goodness and thank Tim Skipper for giving me the opportunity to run the offense.
Yeah.
So I think they're locked together in a good opportunity out there in Westwood, where they haven't had a lot to cheer about in a while. And if you got those two guys, rolling for you, sign them up and let them give them a whole season to see what they can do.
Yep. Yeah. Cohesion in the coaching staff, right?
Well, you've got 2 guys there too who are Southern California guys.
Mm-hmm.
They know Southern California. They know where these kids play, and that's that. There's nothing wrong. You and I have said, look at Arizona State, right? They went out and they got a guy who bleeds Arizona State.
Yep.
And Kenny has been able to make it work because he believes in the product and believes in the university.
Yeah.
So why do you want to go get somebody who might be a name, but they have no roots in the area that you're bringing them to?
That's what I think is big about the staff, and not to speak, like I said, Jerry's getting all the press right now.
Mm-hmm.
So not to dismiss Tim Skipper or anything, because I just haven't seen the same type of thing done with him. But I think it was somebody with like the UCLA social team or whatever. They did like a walk and talk interview with Jerry Neuheisel, and he said his dream was to be the UCLA head coach. I don't know if that was recent. I don't know if that was before all of this started, but regardless, it's very clear that he's a guy that loves UCLA. I would assume the same for Tim Skipper. To be able to hold out and take this job and turn this team around the way he has. It takes a lot for a team coming off of their coach's firing to bounce back the way that UCLA has.
Well, think about for a minute when we're talking about Neuheisel, right? He was a ball boy when his dad was coach.
Mm-hmm.
He spent 5 years, around that program at a young age. Think of, when you and I and others, we all have our, childhood around, whether it's family team or whatever, where the family meaning the team, the family follows the team or however. But your dad's the coach, right?
Yeah.
And you have all this access as a kid to this school, to the university, to the players, to the to going out there to Westwood to practice and all that. And now you're a guy. You're one of the guys.
Yeah.
You're running that offense, man. That's your offense. That has to be a dream scenario for Tim. It's got to be I'm sorry for Neuheisel. For Tim, he's a guy who also is a Southern guy. He's not a USC guy, but he's a Southern California guy.
Yeah.
He knows where the bodies are buried out there, and he and Neuheisel both have got the kind of personalities that can get you what you want in the way of the quality people.
Yeah, it's also a case for UCLA where you really have nothing to lose by bringing this staff back.
Well, no, they've screwed everything else up.
Yeah, if they were to exceed expectation, why would you not bring them back? Like who else is going to want that job? So it feels like a job where they very much have a scenario where they play themselves into full-time positions there.
Well, think about this before, and I don't want to drag it out much further, but think about this. Think Chip Kelly left that job to take a coordinator's position.
Yes.
Now, Chip Kelly doesn't leave jobs.
Nope. They pretty much had to kick him out.
Yeah. Well, basically, they pissed him off so much. Definitely, he just left.
Yeah.
He goes to Ohio State to take a coordinator's job.
And I think, if you look at it, if you'd looked at that move a few years ago, you had said, well, maybe he sees the writing on the wall. He wants to be in the Big Ten. He feels like maybe this is like a step up for him. It's the same conference. He jumped from one school in your conference to take a lesser position at another school in your conference.
Right.
So the only way you can view the only way UCLA should have viewed it is like, hey, this guy left us for a downgrade in position. Now, you talk to people in the public, I myself think higher of the Ohio State offensive coordinator job than I do the UCLA head coaching job right now. I think Ohio State's offensive coordinator is a better job than the UCLA head coach.
Yeah, but let's go back for a minute. This is Chip Kelly. Okay. Chip Kelly, no matter where he coaches, whether it was Oregon where he was, a god, translated that into Philadelphia, that didn't work out. Ends up going back into college and then ending up at UCLA. Chip Kelly, that's basically Chip Kelly giving up on you, meaning UCLA, saying, you know what, there's nothing out there for me as a coach that gives me the feeling that I'm going to be able to succeed here because these morons can't figure it out. And you know what? I just had it. So he goes and, works for somebody who worked for him.
Yeah.
At Ohio State. So I understand what you're saying, and I would agree with it, except for the fact that the guy that it is a guy who absolutely, never gives up on his ability to coach.
No.
So the fact that it was Kelly, to me, would have, the first thing I would have done, if it were me, the first thing I would have done is fire the athletic director.
Yeah.
And say, you know what, there's something here that's not going right. And if we're losing Chip Kelly because he doesn't think we bought into this deal, then we really need to start thinking about, who's running the show here.
Yeah. Which I think everybody would probably agree. I say if, when UCLA eventually fires their AD, whether that be today, tomorrow, 5 years from now,
right?
It will be a long time coming, long overdue. So I think they were long overdue when they joined the Big Ten and retained their AD. Like, it's very clear that things behind the scenes have not been going well there in terms of their athletics department for a while. So, they need change in the athletic department, but I hope that they get the change, but I hope that change also has an understanding of what they currently have in place right now in terms of their coaching staff. And we say all this and we speak glowingly, and they could lose the rest of their football games and all of this could be moved.
Yeah. So. For now, I just have, over 3 games, you see what goes on, and you just, from my standpoint, I realize exactly what you said. They could lose all of it, and these 2 guys could be, if they're lucky, getting coaching jobs at, out in Southern California at Mater Day, high school, for all I know. But for a short period of time, Tim Skipper and Neuheisel have figured something out.
Yep.
Now, whether that sustains itself or not, I don't know. But it seems to me that, I kind of think that that's if there's a good story to come out of UCLA, that might be the best story that you could ask for right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And, to the staff's credit also is they are most of, if not entirely, to blame for James Franklin's firing. Like, that's a trophy that no one else in the Big Ten is going to be able to boast outside of maybe Northwestern. But, Penn State lost Drew Aller in that game. So you could throw an asterisk on both of the Oregon and the Northwestern games. But that UCLA game was like the big stain, it felt like, on James Franklin's resume that honestly probably was a driving factor in them firing.
Yeah, I really don't want to get into it right now, but we will get into it in the next couple of days. But I got some reporting, which I'll be working on next week, about some issues between the athletic director and James that have been going on now for about 1.5 years. Yeah. So I'm not so certain this wasn't going to happen somehow, some way. And perhaps the team having, this little mini meltdown that they had, helped the AD get what he wanted.
Yeah.
And that happens sometimes where ADs will come in. You're his coach. So, they'll figure out a way to, if you're not doing what they feel is the best thing to do, then they'll figure out a way to get rid of you.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's happened there, but I'm saying if you connect the dots, it's not an unreasonable thing to think.
No, it definitely isn't. I feel like it's been – you listen to certain people talk. I think the most telling one that I heard recently was Todd McShay. Yeah. And you listen to the way that he talked about James Franklin, in the past couple of years, and he described it as long overdue. If I remember correctly, not to put words in his mouth. That was about the way he surmised the James Franklin firing.
Yep. Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we've had a lot of fun. We hope you have as well. Come back tomorrow because we have a boatload of college and pro football to talk about. And it's going to be interesting to see what goes on right there down the street from you. That has playoff implications,
big time.
In that regard, and SEC implications. So we shall see what we shall see tomorrow. All right, buddy. Thanks very much as always for joining us, Mr. Matthew. And we will see everybody else tomorrow around the same time, sometime around lunchtime. Okay, everybody? Until then. For Matthew, I'm Jim. Take care, everybody.